Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's In. Bobo here. Let me see. One of the guys I talked with here, getting the channel set up, said offset about a third, so now I'm offset. I think I've gone through my whole life offset about a third. At any rate, 1985, 86, I was the chief of stand of Val at Randolph Air Force Base, and I enjoyed the job. I got a little bit done there, and I'm happy about it and so forth. And I enjoyed the check rides I gave. I flew with some great guys. One of the guys I flew with was a man named AR, and he had been a Thunderbird at one time. Actually, he was the narrator. So I drew him for an instrument check, and we briefed it up. Got in the airplane, everything was normal, ops normal as they say, got out to the end of the runway, and when I got out there, he called for takeoff, and that's when the fun really began. We get clearance for takeoff, and we're going to take off out of Randolph, fly down to one of the Navy bases, shoot a couple approaches, and come back home and shoot another approach to a full stop unless we had some gas for touch and goes and so forth. Just love playing around in that jet. Anyway, so he calls up and requests a takeoff, and at that time he began narrating the whole damn check ride, just like it would be a Thunderbird show. And it was the most interesting check rides I ever gave, to sit there and listen to him narrate what he was doing as if he was putting on a show. I truly enjoyed it. And when we got back, there wasn't much of a debrief, as you might imagine. He was a good pilot and very entertaining. The other thing I remember about AR, he lived on base. And one of the neatest things he did, that I think it was neat, he went over to base housing and researched the history on the house that he lived in. And he went back to the 1930s when that house was built, and he created a guest book, if you will, a book of it, of all the occupants of that house, the dates they were in it and so forth, who they were, what they did, and so forth. And I just thought, having been a military brat myself, that was just so cool. And always kind of admired him for that. The last thing I suppose I have to tell you about AR, we were down in Auger Inn one night having a few pops, just a few. And he came out about 10:30, quarter to 11, and he got to wondering, am I okay to drive home? He probably had a couple pops and maybe one or two more, who knows. He thinks to himself, well, I'm only going to be going 10 or 15 miles per hour through base housing. He says, I ought to be okay. So he gets in his car and he starts heading home. Now, he lives in one of those middle loops. There was an inner circle, and then a mid-circle, and then the outer circle. So he lives in the mid-circle somewhere. So he comes out, makes a right, heading toward his house, and he's driving along very carefully, very deliberately. So he's driving along, and he sees something out of the corner of his eye coming right to left, and he says, there's something crossing the road. And then he goes, bump, bump, damn, I hit it. I wonder what that was. He pulled off the side of the road and got out of the car and walked back, and there was this cat laying in the road. Oh, crap. Wouldn't you know it? So he looked over and he saw this light in the house, and and there were lights in the house and the porch light on. So he walked up and said, must have been where that cat probably came from. I can't leave a cat in the road. That's just not the type of person I am. So he walks up, rings the doorbell, and this little old lady came to the door. She says, yes, may I help you? And AR says, ma'am, he says, I'm sorry to bother you, but he says, I was on my way home, and he says, I saw this cat run out from the trees or whatever, the bushes or whatever, and he said, before I realized what it was, I hit it. And he says, I'm just wondering if that cat might have been yours. And she says, well, what's it look like? And AR looks at her and he goes, she says, oh, no, 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 no. He says, before you hit it. He goes, so that was that story. Bobo base gear stop.